Let's continue with the part 2, that is sex worker and human right. Constitution of the India, Article 21, right to dignity. Article 21 guarantees no person shall be deprived of his life and personal liberty except according to the procedure established by law. Judicial interpretation has expanded Article 21 to include right to live with dignity, right to livelihood, right to health, protection against sexual exploitation, right to rehabilitation. The Supreme Court has consistently held that the dignity is the core of the constitutional value, especially for the marginalized and exploited. Immoral Trafficking Prevention Act (ITPA). The aim This act aimed to prevent from commercial sexual exploitation, penalize brothel keeping, procuring, and trafficking, protect women and children from exploitation, provide rescue and rehabilitation mechanism. This act does not criminalize victim but target exploitation network. The constitutional framework, Article 23, prohibits trafficking of human being and forced labor. Article 24 prohibits our child labor in hazardous employment. This provision reinforces Article 21 by ensuring freedom from coercion and degrading the treatment. Rehabilitation measures. Rehabilitation is central to restorative justice, includes protective homes and shelter home, medical and psychological assistance, skill development and vocational training, legal aid, social integration. Court have emphasized that the rescue without rehabilitation is constitutionally inadequate as it fails to restore dignity. Jurisprudential jurisprudential position. Indian constitutional law adopts victim-centered approach. Exploitation violates dignity. State has positive obligation to protect and rehabilitate. Human trafficking is not merely a criminal issue but a human right violation. There are some landmark cases. Buddhadev Karmaskar versus State of West Bengal. This case originated from a criminal conviction involving the murder of the sex worker. While dealing with the appeal, the Supreme Court expanded the scope of matter to examine the human rights and living condition of the worker. The court treated the issue not merely a criminal appeal but a public interest concern involving the dignity under Article 21. Constitutional recognition. Dignity. Supreme Court held that the sex workers are entitled to dignity under Article 21 of the Constitution. They cannot be denied a fundamental right merely because their profession. Social stigma does not justify deprivation of the constitutional protection. The court emphasized that even a sex worker has the right to live with dignity under Article 21. This marked a shift from purely criminal law perspective to right-based constitutional approach. Rehabilitation oriented approach. A court directed a framing of scheme for rehabilitation of the sex worker who wish to leave profession, skill development and alternative livelihood opportunities. Sensitization of the police and administrative authorities, forming a committee to examine long-term welfare measure. Rehabilitation was seen as a state obligation, not charity. The legal and academic significance. From the academic perspective, case reinforced the doctrine of substantial equality. Expanded the Article 21 includes socio-economic rehabilitation, recognize sex worker as a right-bearing individual, not merely a victim of or offender, aligns Indian jurisprudence with international human rights standard, link human rights framework with Article 21 and Article 23. Welfare state obligation under directive principle. It reflects the moral regulation of to the constitutional human right protection. Migrant worker. The international protection for the migrant worker What is the core objective? That is to protection of the civil, political, economic and social rights of the migrant worker, non-discrimination of the respective of the migration status, safeguards against exploitation, forced labor and arbitrary detention. What are the key right before court article, that is 18. Article 18, protection against violence and exploitation, right to just and favorable condition of work, protection of the family unity. India legal framework to regulate employment condition of the interstate migrant laborers and prevention exploitation by contractor, mandatory registration of establishment, licensing contractor, equal wages with local worker, displacement allowance, journey allowance for return travel, medical facilities and accommodation, wages and safety concern. Despite legal and safeguard, practical challenges remain: wage discrimination, delayed payment, hazardous working condition, lack of social security, informal sector vulnerability, absence of grievance redressal mechanism. The COVID-19 crisis exposed structural weakness of the migrant protection system. Our constitution has some provision regarding to Article 14, Article 19, Article 21. The directive principles under Article 13 and 41, 43. Judiciary has interpreted migrant worker as a part of the right to dignified livelihood. Academic and policy insight. Modern human rights scholar emphasize migrant as a development issue. Intersection of the labor right and human dignity, need for profitability of social security, role of international corporation. What are the judicial protection for the migrant? Bandhua Mukti Morcha versus Union of India, the landmark PIL was filed by Bandhua Mukti Morcha, an organization working for the release of bonded laborers in Haryana stone quarries. Petition alleged the inhuman working condition, non-payment of minimum wages, bonded labor practice, absence of the basic facilities like drinking water and medical care. The case transformed the Indian constitutional jurisprudence regarding to the labor and human right. The Supreme Court significantly broadened the scope of Article 21 to life and personal liberty. The right to life with the human dignity includes the protection to the health, strength, and human working condition. Article 21 interpreted to include right to life with dignity, right to livelihood, right to health, protection from exploitation, human work condition, mark a shift from a narrow procedural interpretation to substantive socio-economic right. Enforcement of the directive principle. Article 39, protection against exploitation. Article 41, right to work. Article 42, just and human work condition. Article 43, living wage. The judgment reinforced the concept of India as a welfare state committed to a social justice. PIL, jurisprudence and judicial activism. Liberal locus standi, exploratory jurisdiction, court power to monitor implementation to become a cornerstone to social action litigation in India. HIV/AIDS victim. Legislative background. Act was enacted to prevent and control spread of HIV/AIDS, prohibit discrimination against person living with HIV, protection of confidentiality and dignity, ensure access to treatment and healthcare service. It reflects the shift from public health only approach to right-based statutory framework, right to privacy and confidentiality, no HIV test without informed consent, strictly confidential of the HIV status, disclosure only with the informed consent by court order. This aligns with the constitutional protection of under Article 21, which includes the right to privacy and dignity, unauthorized disclosure, and address legal penalties. Non-discrimination provision. The Act prohibits discrimination in employment, education, healthcare, insurance, public housing office. No person can be denied service merely because of HIV status. This operational Article 14, equality before law, Article 15, Article 21. Right to treatment and healthcare access. The Act obligates the government to provide an antiretroviral therapy as far as possible, established ombudsman mechanism for the grievance redressal, promote awareness and prevention program, access to treatment recognized as a part of right to health. Judicial and academic perspective, Indian courts have consistently held that the stigma and discrimination violate constitutional morality, public health concern cannot over fundamental right. Confidentiality is integral to human dignity. Academically, the Act represent integration of the human right and public health law, recognition of the PLHIV as a right of bearing citizen, a model of substantive equality for the vulnerable. The landmark case is Mr. X versus Hospital Z. The case concerns disclosure of the HIV positive status by the hospital to his fiancée family. The petitioner argued that disclosure violates the right to privacy and confidentiality, and at Article 21, the Supreme Court held that while medical confidentiality is important, it is not absolute. The disclosure was justified in this case to protect the right to life and health of another person. Thank you. We'll meet in another lecture on another topic.